We have roll call, please. Ms. Holly?
All councilors present and a quorum has been declared.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the agenda approval.
No changes, Mayor.
Okay.
I'll make the motion we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Your motion and second. Any further discussion? Okay. Start voting, please. Ms. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Up next, we have citizen comments. This is the time where we allow the citizens to come up and speak, and we ask that you keep your comments below 3 minutes. If you are not done within 3 minutes, I would politely ask you to end and let the next person speak. Do we have any citizen comments? Any cards, Holly?
No cards.
Okay. And if you need to fill out a card, if someone here who hasn't had a chance to, they have them up here. If not, we'll just keep going. Okay, all right, good. The next item we have ceremonial items. Tonight we have the National Health Center Week Proclamation. And do we have anyone here today that, okay, good. Would you like to come up to the podium and say a few words, and then I'll read the proclamation, and we'll come down there and greet you and take a picture, okay?
Okay,
all right, if you could state your name. And
my name is Suzanne DeVore from Valleywide Health Systems, and this is my coworker, Karen Mizukami from Valleywide Health Systems. We're very honored to be here this evening. And this proclamation is a national recognition of National Health Center Week, which is coming up August 12th to the 18th. And so we want to thank the city for all your support for Valleywide's clinics throughout Alamosa and then throughout the San Luis Valley. And Karen, her specialty is our dental clinics, and so we're trying to bring more innovation into our dental clinics, medical clinics, and physical therapy, and incorporate behavioral health across all of those services. And then also we have our rural training track, in which we've brought 2 residents a year ago and 2 more this year to promote medical students. Actually, they've graduated doctors to come do their residency here in a rural area in hopes that they will stay and serve in their medical career in a rural area. So those are 2 highlights we have. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Karen.
Did you want to say anything? Okay, you can stand there. I'll go ahead and I'll read the proclamation, and then we'll come down there and greet you, okay?
Thank you.
All right. National Health Center Week 2018 Proclamation. Whereas for over 50 years, community health centers have provided high quality, affordable, comprehensive, primary and preventative health care in our nation's underserved communities, delivering value to and having a significant impact on America's healthcare system. Whereas, as the country's largest primary care network, health centers are the healthcare home for 27 million Americans in over 10,000 communities across the nation. 1 in every 12 people in the United States get their care in community health care centers. Whereas health centers are a critical element of the health system, often providing the only accessible and dependable source of primary care in their communities. Nationwide, health centers serve 1 in every 6 residents of rural areas. Whereas health centers develop new approaches to integrating a wide range of services beyond primary care, including oral health, behavioral health, and pharmacy services to meet the needs and challenges of their communities. Whereas health centers are governed by patient majority boards, ensuring that the patients of each health center are engaged in their own health care decisions. Whereas health centers are locally owned and operated small businesses that serve the critical economic engines helping to power local economies by generating $45.6 billion in economic impact in some of the country's most economically deprived communities. Whereas health centers nationally employ more than 200,000 people, including physicians, dentists, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants who work as part of multidisciplinary clinical teams designed to treat the whole patient, whereas the health center model is an effective means of overcoming barriers to healthcare access, including geography, income, and insurance status, and in doing so improves healthcare outcomes and reduces healthcare system costs. Whereas health centers reduce overall cost of care by helping manage patients' chronic conditions, which keeps them out of costlier health care settings like hospital emergency rooms. Whereas health centers are on the front lines of emerging health care crisis, providing access to care for our nation's veterans, addressing the opioid epidemics, and responding to public health threats in the wake of national disasters. Whereas National Health Centers Week is the opportunity to recognize America's nearly 1,400 healthcare center organizations with over 10,400 service delivery sites. Therefore, dedicated staff, board members, patients, and all those responsible for their continued success and growth since the first health centers opened their doors more than 50 years ago. Whereas during National Health Center Week, we celebrate the legacy of America's health centers and their vital role in shaping the past, present, and future of America's health care system. Now, therefore, I, Ty Coleman, Mayor of the City of Alamosa, do hereby proclaim August the 12th, 2018 as National Health Center Week. I encourage all Americans to take part in this week by visiting, I apologize, there's a stamp over the word, by visiting the local health centers and celebrating an important partnership between America's health centers and the communities we serve, and they serve. All right, that was
Thank
a mouthful.
you. That's a lot. Thank you.
Okay, up next, we have consent calendar A. Everyone had an opportunity to look at that?
Mayor, I move that we approve consent calendar A.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, please start voting. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Up next, we have regular business. Under item A, a presentation from outside agencies. The first one is a request for funding from the SLV Local Food Coalition. Do we have anyone in the audience?
Mayor, I'm not seeing anyone, so I'm thinking there might be some confusion.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'll check with the group and see if they want to be on a future meeting.
Okay, that sounds good, Heather. Thank you so very much. Okay, up next, we have another presentation from the San Luis Valley Youth Hockey Association. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Martin Sowards. I am the Vice President of the San Luis Valley Youth Hockey Association. With me tonight is Mrs. Anna Gearhart. She is our Director of Fundraising. And my son is the bashful one in the back that didn't want to come up and meet you all. Thank you for letting us take a minute, and thank you for the ice rink. We had ice from January through March last year. Everybody loved it. I think we represent a large, we're small in numbers up here, but there's a lot of people that really enjoyed it. We just want to say thank you for allowing this ice rink to be possible, and we have plans to make it better because of the dust issues. I've spoken to Mr. Andy Rice. We're trying to get all that taken care of as well. We finished our season with 2 home games, which was really, really nice. Historically, we've had to travel to every game. We had 17 players at the end of the season. This year, we joined the Rio Grande High School Hockey League, which guarantees at least 15 games minimum, and the schedule is currently in progress. We plan on having more home games this year, and once we get the schedule, we're going to work with Jess Jolly and Mr. Andy Rice and try and work all that out. We're also working with the youth hockey that the city puts on, trying to work all that together as well. We're working with Jess and Andy for cooperative hockey experiences through ages 6 through 18. We also have a golf ball drop that we put on every year that is actually a fundraiser. We sell 1,000 golf balls that provides money to allow our organization to function. It's a club hockey team. We travel. We're self-funded, and so we need money to cover equipment, referees, coaches, and scholarships for those that can't afford. We did get money to put on a tournament this year from it's the Economic Development Group, I believe. They provided some scholarship or some money, a grant actually, to help us put on a tournament. We've tentatively have planned for Ice Fest weekend, so be watching for that. We are going to have an at-home hockey camp, and we're projected to have at least 18 to 20 players this year on the team. You all have a photo of last year's team. We've had a really good time, and we expect it to get better. Do you have any questions for any of us?
Council, Daniel?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you. I know I asked Anna if you guys could come and just tell us how the end of the season went, so I really appreciate you coming and sharing with us. She did, when we were talking, and this was at your pancake fundraiser, which was like the best pancakes ever, that there were people who wanted to buy ice time, and you were looking at that and working with the rec center for that as well. Am I remembering that right?
You mean in the sense that they were they were all vying for ice time?
Yes.
Basically, so I don't want this to sound like it's a negative thing, but we're all fighting for the ice. There is no stretch of opportunity when the ice is not being used. So it's it's pretty much constant. After we get the schedule set, and our president isn't here this evening, Chris Hayden, but I did speak with him on the phone today, and he said that the city's being very cooperative with us and trying, because our games, once the schedule is set, which since it's, well, it's not July, it's August, I guess.
Right.
But our schedule will be set first, and so working around that the best we can, and then everything else kind of fits in. It's not, our practices, I believe, started at 8:30, 8:45. Evan?
What time was practice, son?
Oh, okay. Well, at any rate, we weren't off the ice before 10 o'clock. So it's being used 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. And I know we teased my 15-year-old who he was over there at least 6 days a week. Public skate, drop-in hockey, all those things. So if you were worried about the use of the facility, I don't think that's going to be an issue. It's going to, if anything, it's that there's not enough ice time, and it might move into, hey, can we be open later or earlier or whatever. So that's definitely the case.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
And then I did have a tree board meeting today, and they are wondering if you would be interested in partnering with them to potentially go after a grant for some landscaping out there or some trees. And I said I would mention it tonight to see if that would be something you would be interested in.
We can definitely talk to the board about that.
Okay.
I know Dr. Sowards and Evan have been working collectively. The dirt in the facility was a huge mess for us last year. It did actually, the city lost revenue. I do know they had to close a couple times. We had to cancel practices and things. So I think landscaping could definitely be a positive thing. So we'll discuss that as a board. We have a board meeting in a week or so.
Awesome. We'll make
Yeah.
sure that they get into contact with you.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I know a young man that's looking for an Eagle Scout project, so he might be able to spearhead something like that.
For sure.
Thank you very much for your time. And
We still have some more comments.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. Same thing, thank you for everything you do for our community, for an outlet for kids to do something besides sitting at home playing video games. You mentioned the scholarship program. I know one of our biggest things getting this hockey rink going was to make sure that all kids have an opportunity to play. Can you comment more about your scholarship program and how that works? And
basically, with our fundraising, we try and provide money for those that can't afford to play hockey. To be a member of the SLV YHA hockey group, I don't remember I think it's $150 a year.
Well, we've discussed that. Yeah, that's definitely one of the numbers.
I don't know
So
if it's, yeah, and so just to join, that's what it costs. Some people can't afford that. So
Right.
we try and have a couple scholarships that help that out. Your equipment is expensive. It's kind of an expensive sport, it really is. We have a few storage facilities full of equipment that we've gathered. Certain cities have actually dumped helmets on us and stuff like that, which has been really, really nice. And so we have equipment that we try and share. Kids outgrow equipment really, really quick. You learn really fast where you can find used equipment for reduced cost. And so we try everything we can to allow those that can't afford certain things to be there and play with us and stuff like that. So that's what the scholarship's all about.
And I think it's important to clarify that we also have the rec side for certain
Yes.
ages that then
Yes.
is
That's
right.
obviously a different cost with equipment provided as well.
Currently, the SLV YHA is 13 years to 18 years just because of USA hockey rules, but we are discussing the possibility of working cooperatively with the city because after speaking with Ms. Jolly, there's the seasons around basketball and so forth. There were kids that wanted to play hockey. Obviously, the ice rink is new and everyone's excited and we want to get as many kids on the ice as we can. So we've talked a little bit about maybe working off-season with them outside of what the city's able to do to see if we can promote that. So that is in the works for future. But also, I'd like to add too, and since you mentioned the city, we've not ever had a problem thus far getting kids in equipment that can't afford it because the city is also very good to work with us. If we call and say, hey, can we borrow whatever, they're really good about that. So, so far we haven't had any kids that we haven't been able to get to play. So.
Councilor Brawls.
I just want to say thank you for your leadership. It takes a lot of effort, time, and I know it benefits quite a few youth. So, thank you for that leadership.
You bet. We hope to get your grandson Todd back on the ice.
We're planning for an explosion, if that makes any sense. We said 18 to 20, it might be 25 or 30.
Yes.
Councilor Carson.
I just wanted to say thank you as well, and I had a quick question for you. Did you guys come up with a solution yet for the wind barrier?
I believe Mr. Andy Rice can address that. I believe it's being taken care of. Yes, thank you for asking.
Okay, I too would like to thank you all for everything that you do. I've had a lot of families really voice their appreciation for having the resources to bring their kids to learn hockey, and also the travel team that you have. A lot of families are happy that they're able to go to those different communities and experience those different tournament opportunities and playing opportunities. But more importantly, I want to thank you in advance for the amount of people that you're going to draw to our community this hockey season, because with having 15 games on the schedule, I'm quite sure there are going to be quite a few of them here, and that's going to help our city economically as well as expose more children to the and young people to the opportunity of hockey. So thank you for everything you do.
That is one advantage of the way that the schedule works, is that they, most games, they count the home game and the away game at the same time, so there will be a lot of overnight stays, meals in restaurants, gas stations, and et cetera, so that is definitely a benefit to the way it's set up.
You play a doubleheader, that way you only travel and you get 2 games.
Right.
You know, if we travel to Albuquerque, we get 2 games, and if they come here, they get 2 games, and so it cuts down on the travel costs and really helps out. One other thing I want to add, we have John Saxton and Rob Pickett, who are actually going to a coaches clinic this month to help run coaching clinics. USA Hockey has a very organized way of teaching coaches, and so they're going to go get trained on how to do that so we can pass that on down to our youth coaches. Also referee clinics. We're bringing referee clinics here to grow our own refs. Being in the Scholastic League, you want to have good refs, and so that's another thing we're bringing to town that should really help grow our own program.
And November the 4th is National Learn to Skate Day, so there's been discussion about potentially working, if that's a possibility, to be able to have an event here as well. So all those things are working together. So.
That is great. Okay. Well, thank you all so
Thank you very much.
And keep up the great work. Thank you. Okay, up next on the agenda, we have business brought forward by city staff, Public Works.
So as he's making his way up, I have a conflict on this one, as my husband is part of the bid that is being discussed. He's the electrician on that. So do I leave or do I sit here?
You just do not participate in the
Okay.
discussion or the vote, but you can stay physically
All
in
right.
the room.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Hensley, for bringing that to our attention. Yes.
This is a proposal brought before you to accept the low bidder for the rec center boiler replacement. The rec center boiler has been giving us problems for a number of years. As originally installed, the system was intended to use the heat from the 20th Street well. Once it was installed, it was determined that the well wasn't hot enough to actually function as it was designed. So it's actually been, the rec center has been operating on a boiler that has been undersized for the past 25 years. And this upgrade would bring it to a full capacity and be much easier for the staff to operate the rec center. The apparent low bidder is Hussman Plumbing and Heating, which is a local firm, in the amount of $124,480.65. And it is the recommendation of the staff that you accept this bid.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Council, I just would want to add as well, as we discussed when we reviewed the CIP, the original budget for this was $76,000. After we had an engineer look at it, we thought worst case it might be almost $200,000. So we were very happy with the bids that we did get. And we had already modified the CIP for 2019 and later in anticipation of that worst case. So that's how we are handling the difference in the original budget and the increase for the $124,480.
Okay. Thank you, Heather. Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. Mark, what would the timeline be on finishing this project?
They would start on the 9th of this month, and I believe the completion, I've got a timeline here, hang on. They would start on the 9th of August. New construction, including factory startup, is to be complete by August 31st. Test and balance work, September 3rd. and punch list on the September 10th. So it's a very aggressive schedule is what's being proposed.
Would the rec center be down for any of that time?
We don't believe so. I believe that we can, we don't have great heating needs this time of year, and so we would, it's a quick enough time frame that they get between the old boiler and new boiler that we would just go without heat for a few days.
Okay, thank you.
Council Griego?
I had a question, and looking at the bids, I know Husband's a really good plumbing outfit, but the $40,000 difference is, as low bidder, does that send up any flags or anything, or 40,000 is a lot of money?
It is, and but they are a local company with a good reputation, so we are comfortable in recommending them for this bid at that price.
Okay. I just don't want something to come back and say, okay, well, we missed this and we did this and that, so. Because if you see the other two, they're almost, they're about maybe, they're off a little bit, you know.
Right.
And then you got one that goes zoom.
There is considerable, the Hussman did leave considerable monies on the table is the terminology. But Mr. Bergraff, our hired engineer, has reviewed the bid and has reviewed the proposed brands and installation that Hussman came forth with, and he believes we will be okay.
Okay. Just so you heard on it. Thank you.
Council Brawls?
What's the economic life on that boiler?
Well, we got the last one lasted 25 years. If we get 25 years out of this set, that would be doing good. Boilers, I don't know. Harry, have you got a
15 years, I think it's lasted 15.
Oh, was it 15?
15 years.
Harry, have you got a feeling for how long this set of boilers would last? All right, 20 years, a normal replacement cycle.
And what's the warranty on it? Do they give you a warranty?
I believe, I'm not sure exactly, but I believe it's at least 1 year. I'm not sure if the boilers come with a longer warranty, Harry. 1 year, okay.
Okay. Councilor Daniel?
Mayor, if there's no further discussion or questions for Mark, I move that we approve the recommendation brought forth by staff to award the bid to Husband Plumbing and Heating for the amount of $124,480.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, please start voting. Might be missing one.
The motion carried unanimously with Councilor Hensley abstaining from the vote.
Thank you.
Mayor, at
Yes.
this point, I want to bring to council's attention for the item that we had moved past, the request for funding from SLV Local Food Coalition. We did have some representatives come into the room, so if council wants to take that item up, at this point in time, we do have people here.
Council, what are your wishes? Okay, all right, please.
I'll go ahead and use the short one. Well, first of all, thank you for going back. We have a lot going on this time of year, so it was a little messy of an afternoon. But for those of you that don't know, my name is Erica Steenberg. I am here on behalf of the Rio Grande Farm Park and the Local Foods Coalition. No matter who you are, if you live in the valley, you know that local economy and agriculture will affect your life. The last piece that is the puzzle of the San Luis Valley comes in the form of people. It's our community, and it's something, unlike water, that we don't have a shortage of here. I now get the opportunity to work with a group that embodies this inextricable link. I am an intern with the farm park this summer, so I've kind of gotten to see that process and how we are integrated into the community. And it's those three things that we will be celebrating at our local event this August 26th. We are going to be celebrating not only our agriculture and fertile soil, but also that economy and community. And we would like to see you support our efforts to wrap that up into one big shindig. We understand if there are no funds available, but if not financial support, we still need volunteers. Outside of asking for help, we'd like to also extend a formal invitation to not only you, but your friends and your family. It's a free to get into event, and it's really a 2-day only in the San Luis Valley experience. This will be the greatest and most extensive farmers market to ever happen at the Rio Grande Farm Park. Whether it's your logo on our banner, your boots on the ground as volunteers, or your smiling faces as party guests, we'd like to have you around. I do have papers with our sponsorship levels, if you'd like to have those as well.
Okay, thank you. We'll share. Okay, council, do you have any questions? Okay, Councilor Vigil?
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
As you all know, I'm the liaison between the council and the Rio Grande Farm Park, and they've been putting a lot of work into this event for the last 6-7 months. It's going to be a great event. I urge you all to show up. And I know that we are capped out on our sponsorship monies. I was going to ask you all if you would be willing maybe to tap into our city council budget and go for one of these low-level sponsorships, maybe the 100 or the 250, to help support this local event.
Thank you, Councilor Vigil. Councilor Hensley?
So I guess the question is, how much do we have in that account?
Holly, I don't know. We'd have to get back to you. That's the account that we use for the advisory board dinner, and we had already actually tapped into it for another event that you sponsored. So if there is anything in there, it's very little. We can get back to you at a later time.
Councilor Griego? Thank you, Heather.
I agree that I think this is a good program, and it so happens you come at the wrong time. Next year, you guys, you find out when the time is. But I agree. There should be $250 in that council deal. So let's take. In fact, I'll make a motion that we take $250 out of council budget.
I think
Would you-
Heather needs to say something.
Would you want the motion to be an amount, or would you want it to be if up to 250, but if there's only 100, or are you wanting to go over budget?
I'll stick with 250.
Okay.
So, just so that we're clear, right now we're not for sure how much funds we have in the budget, right? If we spend more than what we have, we're over budget.
Correct.
Okay. So if we were to make the motion to use the funds that we have available up to 250, that would probably be the most appropriate.
I believe so, but you've got a motion that specifically didn't want that language, so you may need to deal with that right now.
Okay.
Councilor Griego, can I amend your motion?
No. $250. Come on, give me It's got a 250 in the council. If we're under budget by that amount, that's.
But Councilor Griego, we have protocol and we have processes and procedures that we utilize when we're at council, and we try to be responsible as possible. Staff is trying to make a honest recommendation that we follow a process of allowing up to, so I don't see anything wrong with you altering your motion to make sure that we're not doing anything that's not really appropriate financially.
So there's a motion, if there's not a second, then it would die for lack of a second, and then if there's council that want to have that different wording, then there can be a motion for that, but there is a motion, and I guess call to see if there's a second for that motion.
Okay. Councilor Griego had just mentioned to me he would like to kill that motion. So,
I just looked, and you guys, in that line item, you guys only have $275.26 left.
How much?
$275.26.
okay. All right. Thank you for researching that. Now we can make the proper motion. Okay, so now that you know how much money's in the account of Counselor Daniel,
Can I just ask another question?
Sure.
First of all, do we have any other things that need to come out of that budget?
The only thing that would come out of that budget is a meeting that, like the meeting you guys do with the county commissioners. If it's our turn to pay for dinner, that would come out of that line item.
And our next meeting is going to be for the end of before the end of this fiscal year, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
okay? Go ahead, Counselor Vihil. Oh, Counselor Daniel.
Thank you. With that knowledge and knowing that we have a little bit of an expense coming up, I move that we put $100 toward the farm park, the Rio Grande Farm Park Local Foods Coalition meeting.
Second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, not, start voting. Okay. Ms. Holly?
The motion carried 6-1 with Counselor Griego casting the no vote.
Okay, thank you very much.
And then Mayor, Erica, if you could just send us an invoice, we can
Okay.
process that sponsorship.
All right, and can I ask one more question?
Sure.
For next year, when we're looking ahead for the 2019 local, when would be the best time to come in for that? Like super early, like January? Okay, we just want to make sure. All right,
Okay.
thank you so
All
much
right,
for your time.
Thank you, Erica. Wish you much success. Thank you. Okay. That'll bring us back to item B, the second reading and public hearing of ordinance number 18-2018.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the second reading and public hearing on ordinance 2018, annexing the River Trace property into the city limits of Alamosa. And we've held previous hearings according to Alamosa's regulations and state law. So our recommendation is that you adopt ordinance 2018 and the annexation agreement. And I'm here basically to answer any questions you've got.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, do you have any questions? Okay, all right, not. We're opening it up for a public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to make any comments for or against this ordinance, please feel free to come up to the podium. Seeing that there's no one, I will close the hearing now. Bring it back to council. Councilor V. Hill.
Mayor, I move that we pass ordinance number 18-2018 on second reading.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second.
Councilor Vigil, could you amend your motion to address also authorizing execution of the annexation agreement as presented?
Yes, sir. So I amend my motion saying I want to approve number 18-2018 and approve the draft annexation agreement by the execution by the mayor.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, if not, please start voting. Ms. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Up next, we have item C, the second reading and public hearing of ordinance number 22-2018.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
City Council received some comments from residents concerned about bicyclists riding on the sidewalks and the danger that can present to consumers, especially in some of the commercial areas if someone's exiting a storefront and there's a bicyclist going down the sidewalk. Staff took a look at the situation and what might be feasible, what would make sense. I know there were some in the community that thought, let's just not allow bicycles on sidewalks at all. Staff's concern related to that is we don't have the enforcement power to be able to really do that. And so it's clearly something that council can pass. But what we were worried about is that if we only have 3 or 4 officers on the streets at one time and someone sees someone riding a bicycle on the sidewalk and the officer doesn't stop them, it can create discontent. And so we really wanted to recommend something to council that we would also be able to enforce. When you look at the map up there, this area that is the central business district is shaded in green. Right now, that currently does not allow cyclists, youth, or adults on the sidewalk in that area. We are not changing this shaded green area. We're leaving that as it is. We are recommending, though, that the current area that says this blue on the curve here says cyclists are not allowed on the sidewalks. Given the traffic patterns that you have there, we are recommending that we modify that and do allow cyclists on the sidewalk in that area. And then we are recommending these brown shaded areas be areas that we do not allow adults on the sidewalk unless they are accompanying a minor. And so we've extended here that kind of shape of the central business district, and then we've extended it on First Street and State Avenue. We feel like those are the main arterial roads where you may have the biggest conflict between pedestrians and cyclists on a sidewalk. We still wanted to allow minors to be on the sidewalk if they don't feel safe enough being in the bike lane, just from a safety perspective. And so the ordinance before you tonight would make those modifications.
Thank you, Heather. Okay. All right, at this time, I will open it up for a public hearing. If there is anyone in the audience who would like to make comments, please come up to the podium, state your name, and start talking.
My name is Christine Newton. I ride a bike because it's my only form of transportation outside of riding the taxi, which is expensive. I'm a senior citizen, and I use the bike also as a form of exercise. And I'm a little bit nervous here, so that's probably why my voice is shaking. But anyway, I wanted to point out a couple of, well, maybe more than a couple of things. Number one, I have also seen people who are riding the bicycles on the, some of those streets. I just wonder if I can get a copy of that map too. But I have commented to a few bicyclists who were on the sidewalk riding quite fast. And I know that some of the areas that are marked as prohibited for riding on bicycles. Now, myself personally, I don't usually ride on the sidewalks if I can ride on the street and the traffic is amenable to allowing me to ride along the side of the parked cars or whatever. Sometimes that is not possible because my speed on my bike is not as fast as someone who's a professional bicyclist, or even as fast as some of these cars go down Main Street, and some of them are not even going the speed limit down the middle of the main part of the downtown area, where I would think the traffic would be a lot slower. But sometimes as a bicyclist, you have to cross streets, and you cannot get through unless you get up on the sidewalk to the corners where the buttons are to signal the traffic and for the pedestrians to cross the street. Sometimes I'm forced to use that in order to just cross the street because cars are just zooming by and they don't give you an inch to get through because their business is more important than anybody that's riding a bicycle or on foot. So I was trying to think of some possible things that we could probably do, or maybe ask some of our residents, because I know that if you have the right to ride a bike or a car, well, for a car, you have to have a driver's license, you need to take your training, and you need to pass a test. I think if bicyclists that are those of us that have to ride a bike, and those of us that don't have to ride a bike but prefer riding a bike for whatever reasons, that maybe we could do something of the same manner where those who are riding a bicycle and have a legitimate reason for riding a bike downtown area, that we have maybe some kind of a card that gives us permission, but along with that comes a list of do's and don'ts and must-haves in terms of riding our bicycles. One of the things might be that we have passed the tests for knowing what the traffic rules are, because I know if you're riding a bike, you're supposed to follow almost practically the same kind of rules that a driver does for a car. But sometimes, like I said, it's not possible to do everything the same as a driving motorist. And so if we can have some kind of amended platform, or I don't know the proper word for it, an outline or guidelines, a list of guidelines that if anybody wants to apply to riding the bike in downtown area, that they can go maybe to the city where we get our driver's licenses and get a copy of a list of those guidelines that we can have to read and maybe pass a test on, just like the drivers do, and pass it, and then we get a little permission card or something that we can carry with ourselves, that when we are riding downtown, that if we are stopped for violations or whatever, we have that to, I don't know, maybe that would kind of broker our way when we are in violation. And then I think it probably might make it easier too for the police officers if they see somebody, because they'd have within their rights to stop somebody who's riding downtown, but maybe they haven't taken the time to make the effort to become more apprised of what's the traffic laws are. And then if they don't have any knowledge of the traffic tickets or the traffic rules, they can give them a ticket, the bicyclists who are breaking the laws. But if you have they could probably write a ticket for the ones who do have the permission or the card, and if they're still breaking the law, then they have even more right.
Okay.
But I just wondered about something like that. And let's see, there was another point that I wanted to bring up. Again, if bikes are eliminated from sidewalks, we need to have some way of we cannot totally avoid not getting on the sidewalk with our bikes. Maybe if the rule was amended for these restricted areas, that if you are on a sidewalk and you have your bike with you, that you walk it. And just make it simple like that. And that way, as a pedestrian walking your bicycle, if you come against opposing foot traffic from pedestrians, you're going to have to pull over anyway, because people walking and bicyclists pushing their bike or whatever, you're going to have to make room for the two-way traffic. And I think it would slow down and restrict a lot of the folks that think that they can just get on the bike and just zoom down the sidewalks.
Okay.
And without, thinking about anybody else that's on there. But I would make a point of making this information, putting it in the paper so that we know which areas are going to be restricted. I already know that the area, I think it's from where Trinidad State Junior College, that's what, Bell Avenue or something like that, all the way to Main Street or State Street, that area is restricted in the downtown area, Main Street and 6th, well, I don't know about 6th Street, because that's Highway 160. But also 4th Street is restricted, I believe, because that goes right by the courthouse. And I'm not sure if, I don't think 3rd Street is restricted, but those two long blocks of prohibition on the bicycles are pretty clear. Well, I already know about them. I think the ones that you're having problems with are the ones that are just picking up a bike and they don't have any other form of transportation, so they're just riding their bike and they're just trying to get to work or wherever in the quickest, fastest way, and sometimes they do take shortcuts.
Right, and I think we're going to do our best to make sure that information is posted in the paper and also on our website, and we're going to do our best to try to educate the public. You bring up some very good points. I appreciate that.
Okay, and I would appreciate if we could maybe even have another public hearing where we can get more bicyclists than just myself, to get other ideas or something like that, because I think we need to have some kind of a say in terms of what is acceptable and what's possible for us to ride our bikes and how, and without just having somebody just getting nervous and saying, well, these people are on the sidewalks and we can't even walk. But sometimes you have pedestrians that are busy, on their iPad or on their cell phone, and they're not even paying attention when they're coming out of a door, a store entrance or exit, and they're not paying attention all the time either.
Okay.
And I've noticed that when I'm walking my bike on the sidewalk.
Okay, well, thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other further comments from the audience before I close the hearing? Okay. Oh, we got one more, please.
Good evening. My name is Peter Wise, and this is a coincidence. I was just called up just by coincidence. So with this bike issue, I'm also a biker. I live at 83 State Avenue. Yeah, I would like to thank you for your comment. I also ride bike to work almost every day. There's about 2 or 3 days a month where I actually drive car to work, where I need to run errands, but other than that, I'm biking everywhere. And it is a real problem, bike safety around Alamosa. Actually just submitted a comment to the police department 2 weeks ago, thanking them for an enforcement that they did on a good job with a car that violated a stop sign and put me in a little bit of danger. There's been a lot of dangerous situations I've been in this year, and there are a lot of bikers who bike on the sidewalk, even in the downtown restricted area, which is very clearly posted, so thank you for that. It is very clear the areas where you are not supposed to bike on the sidewalk. The signs are very clear. It's very obvious where you're not supposed to be. And there are a lot of people who do violate that, and they also do ride a lot of bikers in the opposing lane. When you're a biker, like you said, you are obeying the laws as a car, as a motor vehicle. And to have bikers riding in the opposing lane or on the sidewalk sends a message to drivers that it makes it dangerous for the bikers who are paying due diligence to the law, who are riding on the right side of the road, because it forces drivers to drive towards more of the center of the road, or they're expecting that all the bikers are going to be on the sidewalks. And there's been all my housemates are also bikers, and we just had like a house meeting like a month ago about like, man, like all these close calls and and everything, and like, oh man, I almost got hit here, and my housemate actually has a messed up shoulder permanently from a bike accident he didn't have here but prior to coming here. So we're pretty conscious about bike safety, and it's something that I think I'm very glad the city is brought to light here. And if you would, I think public education, I think you're absolutely right, is the way to go about it. If drivers know this is the way we do things, bikers get a mandatory 3-foot minimum clearance in Colorado. They also have the bike lanes, and they are required to follow the laws of traffic. So thank you so much. This means a lot for biker safety, and there's a lot of bikers, especially in the summertime. There's a lot of people who are enjoying the roads, and thank you for having a city with bike lanes in it. That was one of the amazing, biggest surprises when I came to Alamosa a year ago now, that Alamosa is bike lanes, and that's going to attract, and it's really awesome to have bike lanes here. And whatever we can do, those bike lanes will not be used if they're not safe. So as much as we can do to educate our public about it and spread the word, greatly appreciate it. Again, thanks for your time.
All right, thank you. We really appreciate your comments. Okay, is there anyone else out there in the audience who would like to make any comments? So what I'll do is, I'll have them bring that up once we close the hearing and have someone make a response to your comment. Is that okay? Yes. All right. So now we are going to close the public hearing, and once the public hearing is closed, we won't allow any more comments from the audience. So bringing it back to council and bringing it back to staff to answer that question.
Well, so from a public safety perspective, one, we realize we need to do more public education. That is something that we've talked about. We want to do a better job promoting education, both for the youth, but then the adult riders, and we do see them sometimes on sidewalks, especially in the downtown, where they should not have been on the sidewalks previously, and there's times we see them going against traffic. But again, it's an enforcement situation, but it's also one from an education perspective as well. So we're very well aware of the public education that is needed. Ms. Newton brought up a very good point in regards to while we are expanding the areas that adults are not allowed on sidewalks, at any time if they feel unsafe and want to get off their bike and walk on the sidewalk, that's permitted. So that is something that's allowed in the downtown and on these streets and everything like that. So when we say cyclists are not allowed on the sidewalk, that means that they're not allowed to ride on the sidewalk. But in a lot of downtowns, and the city attorney was showing me a picture for an idea of, you know, something in the sidewalk that says dismount once you get into this area and walk your bike. In regards to the flow of traffic, the one-way, it is very important that we do have our cyclists following the rules and regulations and riding on the right side of the road with the flow of traffic and those types of things. And so our recommendation to any cyclist is to make sure they're aware of what the rules of the road are and to make sure that they're complying with those.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Okay, Councilor Brawls.
I have a question. Why is it just the area between 6th Street and 4th Street and West and Edison? Why is it only that block? Why don't you go all the way clear to State between 4th and 6th?
So are you referring to this brown area and
Yes,
the green area?
the brown area.
Okay, so the green area, youth and adults are not allowed on the sidewalk. And so what we're doing is adding onto that to where adults are not allowed on the sidewalk west of that green area. So the green area is already in existence.
Okay, so you're adding in, okay, I see.
So the green area is the most restrictive because we don't even allow minors on the sidewalk. And then the brown areas on First State and that area around Trinidad State Junior College, that's where we've extended it for just adults not being allowed on the sidewalk.
Okay, I understand.
Councilor Vigil, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
One of the alternatives you list is, and Mr. Burrows just brought it up, that green area is the most restrictive. Is there any way that this council might feel like allowing children on sidewalks in that green area? Because I took my daughter on her bike to Cole Park from our house, and we went on 2nd Street, and tell you, I was super stressed, because there was many times, well, if you guys have seen 2nd Street, there's numerous areas without a sidewalk, and having a 4-year-old out in the middle, well, she wasn't in the middle of the street. We tried to be on the right side of traffic and follow the rules as best as possible. But I know having my child on a sidewalk, I feel a little more safe.
Haven't we discussed that already, though, that they were allowed?
In that green area, that's the most restrictive. They're not, as it reads now, we're not allowing kids to ride their bikes in that green area right now. Am I correct, Heather?
You're correct. I guess the only other caution I would have is, right now our definition of a minor is fairly broad. So if you stick with that definition, you could be allowing a 16-year-old then in the downtown, and that may feel differently than what you're intending compared to a 4-year-old. I think the majority of that green area, not all of it, but a majority of it is where you do have the storefronts that are just right next to the sidewalk and no residential, a majority of it. So that's the only caution I would do, is you may want to think through the definition of a minor if that's something you're interested in.
And then when you talk about that, then you're putting our police in a bind just by looking at some kid. Are they 6? Are they 8? Are they 10? You know, so I understand that too.
Okay, Councilor Carson? Councilor Carson, then Councilor Brawls.
I just have a question. I guess this question's probably for the chief because I'm curious about this. The 2 bike lanes on Main Street, are those intended as two-way traffic, or they're both west? They're both west, right? Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Councilor Brawls, and then Councilor Griego.
What's the age limit for riding a bicycle in Alamosa?
To be considered a minor?
Minor, yeah.
Was it 18?
In the areas where minors are allowed on the sidewalk, it is 16.
16, so a 2-year-old. Or
Proposed. This is new, so this is a new feature. Currently, there is no allowance that treats minors any differently from anybody else. That green area treats everybody the same, and that's the current situation. But the proposed ordinance is 16.
Okay, Councilor Hensley?
So I think one of the things too is the idea of education. So without a doubt, I believe in our area there's people that are just not aware of bicyclists and common courtesy to bicyclists and even the law. And so I just got back from Oregon, and I have to tell you, Portland and all around Oregon, they are so courteous of their bike riders. And they make a point to, whether it's a pedestrian or a bike rider. And so I think part of this is education and potentially even working with the schools. I know when I went to school, we got a lot of bike education in school. And so maybe even if we make sort of a theme of trying to do a little more education, especially as more people are riding bikes, that could be a focus as well.
Is that something we're looking into, like when it comes to educating, maybe utilizing the rec center or staff to try to come up with a way to where people in the community could go and get the resources that they need to find out what the bike rules are? And is that something that's in the plans right now, Heather?
So we haven't developed it yet, but we're clearly not going to have to reinvent the wheel, because there's a lot of communities that have very strong public education programs related to cycling. And so I think we do a little bit. I think the police department does some education right now, but there's some communities like Fort Collins and Boulder that do a lot, and it's very established and it's multifaceted to where you're getting at motorists, cyclists, young, old, all of those types of things. And so I think we would just base it off of some of those best practices. But again, it's a staffing situation of developing that and getting it up and going.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Griego.
Okay, with that, I'll make the motion that we approve ordinance number 22-2018.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, if not, please start voting. I think we might be missing one. There you go. Thank you. Okay,
The
Ms. Holly?
motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. The next item we have is item D, the second reading and public hearing of ordinance number 25-2018.
Mayor,
Yes.
this is, as you said, the public hearing and second reading on this ordinance. I don't know that I have much to add to the discussion that we had at first reading. This is just a 60-acre parcel that you can see between State Avenue and Road 109 South, immediately adjacent to the terminal area of the airport that would bring that 60 acres into the city of Alamosa in order to make provision for improvements that the county is actually currently in the process of overseeing going on out there. And so one of the features of the proposed annexation agreement is to designate to the county the responsibility to finish off the inspection and certification, certificate of occupancy for any structures that are in process as of the time of annexation. So before you is both the annexation ordinance and, similar to the one you just did for River Trace, approval of the proposed annexation agreement as presented. I will say that I have had some discussion with the county attorney about the form of that annexation agreement, and he was confident that he and I could work out any issues with respect to the form, but it being summer, that hasn't happened. So I am not aware of any issues the county has with it, but there may be some. I have not heard back from the county attorney.
Okay, thank you, Eric. At this time, I would like to open it up for a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make any comments? Please come up to the podium. Okay, since I don't see anyone, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Okay, Councilor Carson was first, and then Councilor Griego.
Unless Councilor Griego had a comment, I was going to move that we.
Well, I had a question here, if I may. So you're saying, in order to pass this, we're saying contingent upon we ironing out some kind of annexation agreement, Eric, or?
Yes, what I'd like you to do is to move to approve the annexation agreement as presented. If that blows up and the county has changes that are more than just minor changes, then those would need to come before you again. Our practice and requirement is that we do not record an annexation plat until the annexation agreement has been executed. So if you approve both the agreement and the plat tonight and the county's on board with it, we'll get it signed up and it'll be done. If there are changes that need to be made, it'll come back before you again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Carson?
Mayor, I approve that I move that we approve ordinance number 25-2018, annexation of 60 acres of the Assembly Regional.
Thank you. Eric, does he need to add the lingo?
Yes, if you would also add to your motion, Councilor, that you move that we also approve the annexation agreement as presented.
I move that we approve the annexation agreement as presented.
Okay,
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not, please start voting. Okay, Ms. Hallway?
The motion carried unanimously.
Good, thank you. Up next, we have under item E, the first reading of ordinance number 24-2018. Harry?
Good evening, Council. Tonight, bringing in front of you the proposed adoption of the 2015 international codes, that being the residential, commercial, building, mechanical, property maintenance, energy, and fire code. Back in 2007, the city moved from the UBC codes to the international code, being the residential and commercial building code. They continue to move forward in 2011, adopting the suite of codes, bringing in the fire, energy, and maintenance code to make sure all the codes interacted correctly with each other. It's common for smaller communities to adopt codes in cycles of 6 to 9 year increments. We are looking at adopting the 15, it's a 6-year increment, and what that'll do is allow, it's not a big enough change where it'll allow the contractors to make the adjustments, developers to adjust accordingly without really upsetting the process. No financial impacts are really expected. I think it's the right time to make this adjustment. The city participates in a program called the ISO. That is an insurance service program, and what it does is they assess what code cycle we're on, our enforcement and daily practices. They take that information and they put together a rating for our community. They publish that rating, and what insurance companies do is they look at that rating for our community and establish a discount, if you will, on the policies that they're writing for new homes. So it's certainly a good process for our community, our citizens to participate in, and adopting this code will help also move that forward as needed. Staff's recommending the adoption of the codes as submitted, with most of the items just being housekeeping items. There is one substantial item that we want to omit or take out of the residential code, and that is the requirement of residential sprinklers in 1 and 2 family homes. It's an expensive process. We feel that the additional costs is kind of driven by financial institutions and insurance companies to protect their investments. The code is in place to protect the citizens' life safety, and I think the fire code is certainly important. Any homeowner who wishes to have a sprinkler system installed certainly has the right to, but I don't think we should require it. So that would be my recommendation. Certainly entertain any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Harry. Thank you. Okay, council, do you have any comments? Okay. Good job, Harry. All right. Okay. Bring it back to you, council.
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 24-2018, adopting the 2015 International Residential Building Mechanical Energy Property Maintenance and Fire Codes, and set it for a public hearing on Wednesday, September 5th at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? No? All right, start voting. Ms. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Okay, up next, under finance, we have the second reading and public hearing of ordinance number 23-2018.
Again, Mayor, we went through this pretty thoroughly on first reading. This is an amendment to our code that covers procurement that dates from 1992. And the primary driver of the amendment is that the levels at which our code was requiring that the city receive formal sealed bids was unrealistically low, and required the city to do formal sealed bids for projects that really didn't justify the expenditure. So this ordinance raises the floor amount at which sealed bids are required from $15,000 to $40,000. In discussion with staff, we determined that approximately $35,000 right now is where it made sense for doing purchases without doing competitive sealed bidding. Now, that doesn't mean that staff just willy-nilly buys things without trying to price them. So we currently have a provision in the procurement code that encourages obtaining informal quotes from at least 3 providers. That is still in place for anything between $5,000 and $40,000. Below $5,000, it's pretty much go out and buy it. But above that, the suggestion is to obtain informal quotes, and then above $40,000 to do the competitive sealed bidding. We may bring this back to you in 5 years or something to adjust that upwards again, depending on experience. And then finally, it was worth clarifying in our code in this procurement section that the local preference provisions applied for procurements that are conducted pursuant to this code, because the local preference provision was buried in a different part of the code. So if you were a purchasing agent chunking through, deciding where to obtain quotes from and trying to evaluate those quotes, you might forget about that local preference, and this brings it back into that section of the code that you would be referencing as the purchasing agent.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Okay, at this time, I would like to open it up for a public hearing. If anyone in the audience would like to make any comments, please come up to the podium. Okay, at this time, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Okay. All right, council, any comments? Councilor Daniel?
Yes, I just have a question. Wow, sorry. I have a question about, with the, totally want the department heads to have the authority to have the purchasing, but do they, I'm assuming, staff large purchases? I would consider $35,000 a large purchase. Does that get staffed as a general rule of practice? Just so the community understands how the process kind of works internally?
I guess I didn't understand the question. Does staff consider $35,000 to be a large purchase? Yes.
Right, and so they're having hopefully conversations with the city manager like, hey, or I'm thinking about buying this $35,000 piece of equipment kind of
Probably
thing.
not with the city manager.
Okay.
I guess I'd defer to Heather on that, but.
So usually, if it's in the budget,
Then it's
and
good.
something that's 35 would be in the budget identified, anything above 5 is a capital. So, if it's in there, they'd go through the process of getting either quotes, a sealed bid, whatever's appropriate, and if it's in line, they move forward with the
Okay.
purchase. Now, if there's some kind of weird situation, or if it goes over budget, or things like that, then that's when we adjust the process and either pull myself or council into it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't ask the question well, Eric, so I apologize for that.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Daniel. Councilor Griego?
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve ordinance number 23, 2018.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, please start voting. Okay, Ms. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. All right, up next, under item number 3A, we have the second reading and public hearing of ordinance number 26-2018. Chief?
Evening, Mayor. This is an IGA between with the Alamosa School District to provide an officer, school resource officer from the Alamosa Police Department to the school district for the school year of 2018 and 2019.
Okay. All right, at this time, I would like to open it up for a public hearing. If anyone has any comments in regards to this, please come up to the podium. Okay, I will close the public hearing, bring it back to council for any questions. Councilor Daniel?
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Chief, are you planning to have the same officer in place as you've had this past year, and is the school amenable to that?
Yes, Officer Dana Nauer will be the officer assigned to the schools. The superintendent, Rob Alejo, has already looked at the agreement and agreed with the stipulations.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Vigil?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve ordinance number 26-2018.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, please start voting. Okay, Ms. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Up next, we have committee reports. Councilor Vigil, would you like to start?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This last week, I went to a Rio Grande Farm Park meeting, and as you all know, obviously August 26th is their local event. This used to be called the Harvest Soiree. So again, if you guys can go to that, that'd be great. I'm sure you've been invited already, or if not, you will be invited on August 25th. As I have mentioned before, they're going to be having an event. They're going to have a pretty prominent speaker, author there that deals with Southern type cooking. And they're going to, if you give your money to this event and you go for it, you're going to get a whole day tour about where that food you're going to eat that night comes from. They're going to be they're in the process of growing and fattening a pig. You're going to see where that pig has been living and what it's been eating and all that type of stuff. And then they're going to go back that night and cook it for you with some band. There's going to be a band there. There's going to be some of our local breweries will be there. So they will be inviting you to go to that. As far as the park is concerned, they're doing great out there. A lot of different families and people are growing their crops. They got about a month and a half or so of growing left, and then it's time to take everything out. They're having some issues with some people going through there and stealing crops. So, and I know they've been in contact with the Alamosa County Sheriff's Office, so they're helping with that. And yeah, they're rocking and rolling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vigil, for that report. Do we have any other committee reports? Councilor Hensley?
So I went to the golf board, I think a week ago, Thursday, and basically everything's going well. Obviously, we're in the heart of golf season. Just like everybody else, water is a little bit of an issue, but they've been working really hard. The golf course looks really good. And the restaurant is doing really well. And so to really encourage everybody to continue to support the restaurant, and like I say, they're doing some exciting stuff, so some good stuff going.
Thank you, Councilor Hensley. Councilor Daniel?
Thank you, Mayor. I've had a busy couple of weeks going to some meetings. So today was the tree board meeting. They are working on grants, as I had mentioned, to the Hockey Association, and also recently trimmed the tree by Milagros. So you should be able to see the Milagros sign. Differently, the tree board didn't do that, but the city staff did, and they did a really good job. Housing Authority met last week. They are going smoke-free 100% in their facilities this week. So they're really working with their residents. They've signed new and updated leases. It's been quite the educational process for them, and so I'm really proud of the education that they've done. They've done some really neat things, and the residents seem to be stepping up to the challenge. So if you hear about that, you'll at least know where it's coming from, and Anna at the Housing Authority is able to answer any questions anyone might have about that, because it is a change for some people that they might be struggling with. And then I also attended the LEAD Policy Committee. We had our first meeting, I want to say last week, 2 weeks ago. Time kind of flies when you're having fun. And that group is going to be a really, I think, integral group of people discussing how the processes are going. So not necessarily getting into the weeds, but really trying to remove barriers and look at sustainable funding options. And so as we continue to grow and meet, I'll bring more and more updates. We're going to meet monthly, at least for a while, with that. But it was a really well-attended meeting, and the hospital made some really great statements, and all the partners were there who were supposed to be there, so it was a really positive meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Daniel. Heather?
And along with the lead comment, I believe, is it seven that we have in the lead program? And so last we knew, as of last week, we were the only one up and running in the state that actually have clients in the program. So I'm really proud of the group that we have working on that and pulling the partnerships in the community together and to get it up and going.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there are no other committee reports, then we'll move forward to staff announcements.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go ahead and invite the chief up. As he's making his way up, Jolene wanted me to announce for our healthcare sector partnership, we successfully awarded 3 scholarships, $2,000 each. One will go to TSJC, and 2 will be going to ASU. So we supported both higher education, and I'm actually excited about this part too. 2 of the students were from Sanford, and 1 was from La Jera. And I know you might say, well, why are you excited? Because there's not someone from Alamosa. It reinforces that this really is a valley-wide project that we're working on, and we're trying to help all the students from a workforce perspective for all the healthcare sector partners. And so we're excited to get that closed out, and I know Jolene did a great job leading that. And with that, I'll turn it over to the chief, and we do have some other stuff too.
Okay, sure.
Mr. Mayor, Council, last meeting, I announced to you all that I had accepted a job offer from the Sarasota County School District in Sarasota, Florida. Part of the requirements was I traveled to Florida and met the state certification requirements. I did that last week. all except for the written test, and I have to take that when I go to Florida, but I've met the requirements. I did tender my resignation to Heather this week, with my last day of employment with the City of Alamosa being August 8th, which is right around the corner. So I wanted to inform you that I had tendered my resignation, and the reason Captain Anderson is standing here is because he has been appointed by Heather as the interim chief of police until the hiring process search can be completed. So, Captain Anderson.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. You know, I guess my biggest thing right now is I'd like to thank the chief and the city manager for having the confidence in me. I mean, these are big shoes to fill right now. So I'm a little nervous. I've got a lot to learn, but I'm excited about this new adventure. That's really all I've got right now. So I'll do the best I can for the department, whatever's going to benefit them. Right now, we'll work together and keep this rolling positively, hopefully.
And Mr. Mayor, with that all being said, so this will be my last council meeting.
Wow.
So that kind of adds some weight there. We are planning a farewell party for the chief next week on Tuesday, August 7th from 2 to 4, and it will be here at City Hall. So we are trying to get word out far and wide about that farewell, and I know Kenny and his crew are working on some appropriate gifts and that type of stuff.
Okay.
But we're talking serious gifts, we're not.
Okay. All right, we're going to have a few councilor comments. Councilor, I'm not for sure which one was first this time. Okay,
I just wanted to say thank you and good luck and be safe in Florida, and we really appreciate what you've done for the city. You've been a great chief. He's right, he does have some big shoes to fill, but I think he'll do a great job, and good luck, Kenny. We've got your back, and we want to move forward in a positive way, and the same way we've been doing. So thank you guys, and thank you for taking that responsibility on. It's a big deal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Carson. Councilor Daniel?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, you've done a great job, and so thank you for setting a standard that I know will lead us for years to come. I appreciate that, the positivity you've brought, the innovation that you've brought to your team. I appreciate it a lot. Captain Anderson, you're going to do a great job. I'm very excited. I was excited to hear you at the lead policy committee. You did a great job representing what we have going on there. I think your candor is going to be something that we really appreciate throughout the city as well as your team. So thank you both for the time and energy and life you've given us, and it'll be a long time before we forget the chief, for sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Daniel. Councilor Hensley?
So I definitely am going to miss you, Chief. I know you've done a great job for us. I think you've really taken our city and the department and taken it to the next level, and in a lot of different ways. And it's also just around the community, the positive feedback and how people think they think positive about our police force and all the good that is done. And so I think you've done a great job. And yes, you have created some big shoes to fill, but I do also think one of the things I've really appreciated the fact is all along is the idea of setting people up for success, and that idea that anything could happen. So I know you've been working with Captain Anderson with the idea of potentially moving up to this position. So I think you're going to do a great job, and I also am excited to see what you bring into it, because just like anything, there's always different flares, different things that are going to happen, and so I think you're going to do really well, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hensley. Councilor Griego, then Councilor Brawls.
We made our comments last council meeting, and I want to echo the same comments from our fellow councilors. Also, I'd like to echo the fact that Captain Anderson, I know, will do a good job. I think you chose the right person, and whatever he needs, I think this council will be 100% behind him. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Griego. Councilor Brawls.
I just want to echo, thank you. Appreciate it. We're going to be losing a golfer now.
Plenty of golf to play in Florida.
And I had a chance to visit with Officer Anderson last week, so yeah, good. We support you, and good luck, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Hensley. Nope. Okay, all right, no problem. Okay, Chief, I'm gonna miss you. Gonna miss you at these meetings, and most definitely gonna miss you at the retreats in the future that we'll be going to. But I also wanna thank you for the work that you've done for the city. You've helped increase morale. You and your staff do a good job with the integrity of officers and the way you treat people in the community with decency and respect, and that goes a long ways in our community. So thank you for doing that. Florida is indeed lucky and fortunate to have you there, and I wish you much success. Captain Anderson, as long as you do what's right, just, and fair, and continue to be the type of person you've been in the past, I think you will do a great job for the city, and we're looking forward to working with you, and we wish you the best.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let's give Chief a round of applause, everybody. All righty. Okay, Heather, you mentioned that you had some further staff announcement, and I just want to make a comment on one of the scholarship. You mentioned that they were students from outside of Alamosa. I appreciate that as well, because this is one big community and one big family, the San Luis Valley. So whenever we could participate and reach out to other communities, I think that's helpful, and I'm quite sure all of council feel the same way. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
We can have Mark come up, but really where we are on First Street is we thought we were done with the utility conflicts, but last week we ran into a few more that we're still having to work through and may have some potential costs. We will be looking at maybe having conversations with those utility providers on them not being where they're supposed to be, and if they should be paying some of these costs as well. But we're continuing to work on some of those utility conflicts. We don't have an estimate on if that's changed the date just yet, but if you want, I can have Mark come up if you want more information than that. Okay, we have a question.
Sorry, and Mark, you may not have to come up, but I know Adams State is starting and we're not going to be done with the project. So I know you've been working really closely. Do we need to share anything about how the students are going to get across that street or anything like that?
So they go back and forth between two different crossings, and so clearly we'll keep our conversation going with ASU if that's not working, but there's that regular crosswalk that sometimes that area is opened, and if it's not, they've got another one that's been open because they've had summer activity. I think the contractor's been focused on having one of those two open.
Okay.
Can I add something to that? I will tell you, as working at Adams State, it has been great. Every day we get an update in our emails that tells us what's going on. Well, I shouldn't say every day, a lot of the days, but especially when there's something they tell us, and also when water and different things are affected. So I feel like there's been a good communication.
Okay. All righty.
Okay.
We
I
don't
don't think,
really
yeah,
have
we're
any-
good.
yeah,
So the
Good.
other is, I wanted to let you know, for our Water Smarts Committee, Heather Dutton with the SOV Water Conservancy District has joined our team. And the very first meeting she attended had a major impact because she alerted us to some potential grants. And so the projects that council's already selected with the 30,000, we can leverage that for these grants and actually still do the work and have it still count towards the grant. We can also count Dan's time from a design perspective and the labor for us doing the installation, and it's a one-to-one grant. So we moved quickly, and with the help of staff from Dan and Deacon, we pulled the information together and got a grant turned in about a 24-hour time frame. For about $58,500. So I think from talking to the state people, they're excited to see some interest down in this part of the state, and so we're very hopeful. And in addition, Heather's group voted to contribute $2,000 to the project as well and to be a partner. So we're excited about that. That's a little bit of what's been crazy last week. However, while looking at that, they brought to our attention that our water conservation plan is outdated. It probably should have been updated in 2014. So that's, though, something else that we can apply for a grant. So we are getting ready to do an RFP, find out which firm we would need to look at retaining, what the costs are, submitting a grant. But between Heather and our state representatives, they've been very helpful of walking us through this process and making sure we're aware of resources that can help us. So FYI on that perspective. And then...
Councilor Greg will want to say
I just want to make
Okay.
a couple comments. I sit on the SLV Water Conservancy Board where Heather's our administrator. She gave us this presentation, and I think you picked a good, I'm glad that she joined this group because she's pretty savvy when it comes to water. So she'll be a big help, and like you said, we did go ahead and make a motion to give $2,000 to this group, from that group, so I think she'll be a good addition to the Water Smart people.
Thank you. Okay, Heather?
And then this is the last of what I have. This highlighted list is everything that's before your next council meeting. So we've got a whirlwind of activities. Tomorrow is our employee barbecue. This is our opportunity for employees just to relax, bring their families, interact with council, and enjoy a good time. We are back out at Cattails Golf Course, and Woody's Q Shack will be doing the food. We will have the activities for the kids and everything. So it's a really great time, 5:30 tomorrow. We do have the retreat that is this weekend. We begin promptly at 11 o'clock on Friday. So my recommendation is that you may want to get there about 10:30 so you can get checked in, get things in your room, get settled, because we will start promptly at 11 o'clock. We go through the day, we break and have dinner, and then we begin the next day at 9 a.m. So that is this weekend. Unfortunately, this weekend is also the SLV Beat the Heat barbecue competition. From what I've heard, they've got some great interest, and they're getting a lot of community activity and better or more judges and those types of participation from the community. On Monday, we have an SLV Annual Economic Summit. If this is something you are interested in attending, which I would highly recommend, please contact Holly so she can get you registered. It is a $20 fee, but it's something that the city can pay. It does cover your lunch for the day, and we are bringing in some really amazing speakers to talk about demographics, what the trends are from an economic perspective, housing, diversity, recreation, tourism, all of those types of things. So that's very exciting. We also then next week begin our outreach for the ranch plan. So we are holding 2 meetings. The first one is August 6th at 6 p.m. at the Rec Center, and the second one is August 7th at 6 p.m. also at the Rec Center. These are structured the exact same. So my comment to the public is that if you attend one, you're always welcome to attend the other, but it's the same exact meeting. And it really is for Dan to review kind of what's there now, what are some of the topography, the wildlife, some of the uses we currently have, but then we're going to open it up and let the public talk to us about what they'd like to see and what they want us to do with the ranch. So it really is an open-ended, come tell us what you want to see. It does not have to be a resident. Clearly, we don't check IDs at the card, so county residents, visitors, anyone's welcome to come and give us their input. The same night on August 7th, we have America's Night Out Against Crime that's being organized through our police department. That's at 5:30 at Cole Park. We have a work session next week, the budget meeting. So that will be our official first look at what the budgets looks like. We're also going to continue the discussions with the CIP and how that factors into it. We will be starting off, instead of ending, we're going to start off with what the 10-year projections look like based on what the budget and CIP are, both for the recreation fund, the general fund, and our enterprise fund. And then once you see the big picture, some of the reasons we have the recommendations we have might make a little bit more sense. And so we're going to start that next week. Kaboom Build Day at Friends Park is August 11th at 8 a.m. I know Aaron and his crew are still looking for volunteers. It's it's usually some work, but it's an amazing project to be a part of, and to see where they start from nothing and then you have a playground. And so it's an amazing process. If you haven't RSVP'd to help, I'd recommend that you do. It's an amazing thing to be a part of. And then we are going to start advertising for our budget public meeting, the information of what we're looking at and all of that kind of stuff. So we still have not determined the location, but that will be August 14th at 6 p.m. And so all of these items will be happening before your next official meeting on August 15th.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it. Okay, up next we have. Okay.
Can I say one more
sure.
thing? I am sorry.
Okay.
Our Arts Fest is turning out to be an amazing event. And for the unveiling, the art committee wanted to do tours this year. They thought that was something that was missing. And they wanted us to extend an invitation to council members. If you'd like to volunteer to do some tours of the artwork, to let me know. That will be Friday, September 7th. So it is during the day from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So if you would be interested in volunteering or want more information, just let me know. But that was something the group thought maybe council would be interested in.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Okay, up next, looks like we have a pretty busy month Whoa, okay, up next we have council comments. Councilor Vigil.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
I just want to give a shout out to the downtown group that chose the company to do all the work for it and the designing and that. I was able to attend the second meeting last week at Nestle Toll House, and man, top notch. They had different ideas and different parts of downtown and what it could look like, and people were able to vote, and they talked about how we can connect East Alamosa and the bridge area into downtown and different options with that. And what really impressed me is that they were able, the night before, a lot of people voiced their opinions and what they wanted, and they were able to take that stuff from the night before and implement it the next night at the next meeting. So they're really spot on. And we all know that these things are going to cost a lot of money, and what impressed me is that they have a lot of ins and connections with different funding and grants and that type of stuff to help. Hopefully when we get to that time, we can look for those monies. So it's pretty good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you for attending that, Councilor Vigil. We appreciate it, and thanks for that report. Okay, any other council comments? Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. I just
Welcome.
wanted to say thank you to Parks and Rec. We had another great softball season, so appreciate that a lot. No fights on the women's side. I don't know about the men's side, but we had a really good tournament, and I know all of the women's teams really appreciate all the hard work and the umps, and you guys do a lot to make sure that runs very smoothly. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Vigil.
Yeah, one more thing. Speaking of the Kaboom Park next to the rec center, I know Aaron Miltenberger and a few others really did a good job in putting in that igloo hut willow thing. Could we, I've been down there probably every day the last 2 weeks with my daughter. Can we put some temporary signage about kids not hanging on to that? They're starting to break different things, and I would hate for all that hard work to go to waste. Thanks.
Okay, good observation, Councilor Vigil. Okay, all right. I would like to thank Councilor Hensley for running the meetings. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been in Boulder attending banking school, and that's a mandatory training for my job. So I wasn't here for the last meeting, but I hear everything went as well as it could go. And thank you for running the meeting and keeping everything in order. I appreciate that. Okay. All righty. Okay. Up next, we have executive session in pursuit of CRS 24-6-402 4F for negotiating of the city attorney's contract of employment.
Mayor,
Councilor Daniel.
I have to say the whole thing again, huh? Mayor, I move that we move into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 4F to negotiate the city attorney's contract for employment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Start voting. It is now 8:44 p.m. We will go into executive session. Once we come out of executive session, no further business will be discussed. Thank you, everyone.